What's up, fam? It's your girl, Mrs. Tony 2 times, and I'm back with another video. In this episode of Hood Tales, I'll be taking it to Kansas City, Missouri, to discuss the case of Tanisha Harris, a mother of one and minister who tragically lost her life at the hands of her husband, Robert Lee Harris, an ex-church elder. But before we get into this video, welcome if you're new here to our channel, and welcome back to all of our subscribers. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do so and join the Tony 2 times family. Go ahead and click that notification bell to get notified every time we upload. And if you're rocking with the content, don't forget to hit that like button. Feel free to share this video. Make sure you watch until the end to hear my full commentary on this story. All right, let's jump right into it. Church, a place where supposedly born-again Christians congregate to worship, fellowship, and hear the word of God from their pastors and/or leaders. Over multiple decades, the church has had its claims to fester an environment that can be toxic, to say the least. Some churches have their cliques, inner circles, and hierarchy that perpetuates conduct that can lead to a congregation's demise. However, despite those things, most churches still thrive in attendance and allegiance to their pastors and leaders. Congregants would blame it all on the enemy, aka the devil, if anyone attempts to expose any of their wrongdoings. Sadly, there are some people who attend these churches who have pure intentions and are really seeking salvation in solitude. They want to serve God wholeheartedly, but sadly are too blind to see or unfortunately accept questionable behavior to feel a part of something bigger than themselves. Tragedy and an eventual scandal struck a non-denominational South Kansas City church, once known as the Repairers of the Breach Christian Center, to its core after one of its elders was accused of slaying his wife of just 18 months. She was also a minister at the church, 38-year-old Tanisha Harris. Tanisha clocked out from her job at an Overland Park bank for lunch at 11:44 a.m. on January 8, 2018. She never returned. The following day, her body was found in Raymer, Missouri, 20 miles from Overland Park. Her husband, 30-year-old Robert Lee Harris Jr., was arrested 2 days after her disappearance and charged with premeditated first-degree hit. Robert and Tanisha met at the Repairers of the Breach, and here is how it all began. Robert, an Army veteran from Florida, found the Repairers of the Breach after connecting with the church online. According to reports, the church drew Robert Harris's attention. He and the then pastor Carlton Funderburk began corresponding. Robert visited more than once, meeting Tanisha during those visits. Robert and Tanisha reportedly had a long-distance relationship before Robert moved to Kansas City to be with her after he was honorably discharged. Both Tanisha and Robert had daughters from previous relationships. Tanisha's daughter lived with the couple, and Robert's daughter would come to visit on holidays and breaks. On the outside looking in, many would say that Robert and Tanisha were a beautiful couple. They both seemed to have a passion to serve their church. They dedicated themselves and were a part of the church's foundation. Tanisha had been there from the very start, while Robert joined leadership later on. 7 years prior to her passing, Tanisha and about 6 other young people had started the new congregation, branching from another church in South Kansas City called it is written Evangelical Worship Center. The couple got married in July 2016. The union was officiated by Carlton Funderburk. After the news broke about Tanisha's tragic slaying, Carlton Funderburk said that there were no signs at all that would suggest any trouble that could lead to the narrative that came in police statements. He doted on the couple, saying that they were a loving couple. They were a wonderful newlywed couple whose love had bloomed in their work at the church. One parishioner who also was a minister said it was unreal and difficult to believe that Robert would want to end his wife's life. She said he was her spiritual counselor. She went on to say that Robert was their go-to man when they couldn't reach their pastor, and that he loved Tanisha. The minister also told news outlets that Robert's daughter had just come to visit over the Christmas holiday break shortly before the terrible tragedy. On the day Tanisha went missing, Overland Park police first made contact with Robert when they were called to the 8000 block of Perry Street around 4 p.m. for a domestic disturbance at the apartment the couple shared. Robert was found alone in the apartment, according to police. Several hours later, around 8:30 p.m., Robert called on the police to return to the apartment, and he told them his wife was missing. When Robert was questioned, police said they became suspicious, especially after finding red stains and broken glass in the apartment. Robert later admits his role in Tanisha's disappearance. At around 2 a.m. the next day, police in Raymore discovered Tanisha's body in a trash bag discarded in a field. Robert was later arrested. Detectives continued to work the scene at the couple's apartment late in the morning after Tanisha's body was found. As they continued their investigation, police sorted through nearby trash dumpsters and searched a car in the parking lot. Robert Harris was held in jail on a $1 million bail. An autopsy revealed that Tanisha passed away from strangulation and had other non-fatal injuries to her body. Several witnesses testified in Robert's preliminary hearing. Tanisha's mother was the first to testify. Tanisha's mother testified that it was not like her daughter to ignore her phone calls. Then, according to the testimony of Robert's supervisor at the medical center where he worked, he texted her at 9 a.m. on January 8, 2018, and said he couldn't make it into work because of a car wreck. But court records indicated that as early as 9:30 that morning, Robert made several trips to a nearby Walmart to purchase a large trash can, plastic bags, carpet cleaner, and a filleting knife. A neighbor and the apartment manager also testified about hearing the loud noises from the Harris' apartment between 2 and 3:30 that afternoon. Police testified that Robert didn't seem concerned when they asked where his wife was. They tried to reach Tanisha at a number Robert gave them, but left the apartment when they weren't able to reach her. 10 minutes after leaving the apartment, police ran his name and found Robert had an outstanding warrant in another area and returned to arrest him, but he was gone. Then there was the testimony from a man claiming to be Robert Harris's lover. The man who publicly put himself out there after a Facebook Live rant, which I'll get to momentarily. His name is Stephen. Stephen, Robert, and Tanisha were all members of the church. In his testimony during the preliminary hearing, Stephen said he had a romantic relationship with Robert that entailed daily visits and FaceTime calls. The affair had been going on for about a year. According to court documents, Stephen testified that Robert arrived at his home about 1 hour after police came to his house. Robert did not immediately mention to Stephen that Tanisha was missing. Robert appeared sweaty according to Stephen's testimony. Robert then told him he needed to go home and change since he was sweating. According to the testimony, Robert later called Stephen to tell him he thought Tanisha was missing. As mentioned before, hours after Robert first interacted with the police, that's when he called them back to the apartment and reported Tanisha missing. Tanisha's car was also found abandoned in a parking lot very close to Stephen's apartment, which was about a mile away from the couple's apartment. So let's discuss the now deleted Facebook Live video that Stephen made 5 years ago. In that video, he said that he and Tanisha were longtime friends. He claimed that people from the church were coming for him because he chose to testify. He said he wanted justice for Tanisha. Stephen said that Tanisha's slaying was not because Robert was romantically involved with him, but because of money. He even claimed that Tanisha knew that Robert was in relationships with other people, including men. He claimed that some members of the church were hypocrites. He said Tanisha knew who was for her and who wasn't, and shared text messages between them discussing the matter. The explicit video was over 10 minutes long as Stephen loudly and angrily expressed his desire to do something to anyone who continued to come for him or threaten him about testifying. Fast forward to August 2022. After years of Tanisha's family awaiting justice, 35-year-old Robert Harris was convicted by a jury for slaying his wife, Tanisha Harris, on January 8, 2018. Coincidentally, around the time of his conviction, Robert's former pastor, Carlton Funderburk, went viral from the pulpit of the church at the Well for calling his congregation broke, busted, and disgusted for not honoring him with a Movado watch, and even asked if he was worth their McDonald's or Red Lobster money. He told his congregation, quote, "That's how I know you're still poor, broke, busted, and disgusted, because how you've been honoring me." Going on to say, "I'm not worth your McDonald's money. I'm not worth your Red Lobster money. I ain't worth your St. John Smith money. Y'all can't afford it no how." Y'all, the audacity. The pastor would later apologize for the viral clip, saying it was taken out of context. It was also said that Carlton Funderburk, former pastor of the Repairers of the Breach, which is now closed, allegedly did not want congregants to bring up the tragedy of the Harrises. He probably no longer wanted to be associated with what happened since he moved on to pastor another church. In November 2022, Robert Harris was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for 50 years. May Tanisha Harris continue to rest in peace. My well wishes and condolences to her family. Tanisha seemed to love her husband and her church very much. Despite the claims of her knowing about his extramarital affairs, I believe Tanisha had faith in her marriage to Robert. Tanisha was described as a sweet, soft-spoken, loving, kind person and was a devoted mother and wife. Tanisha had recently started preaching in the pulpit and was named an associate pastor before her slaying. This story is just so incredibly sad on many levels. How did Tanisha even fall for this guy? Why did he really take her life? So many unanswered questions. 2 daughters, one left without her mother and another without her father. Thankfully, though, Tanisha got justice and the family got some closure. But sadly, it won't bring Tanisha back. This man claimed he was a man of God, a healer, a spiritual counselor, and a church leader. These titles mean nothing. His heart was wicked and his intentions were pure evil, driven by greed and lust. Talk about a wolf in sheep's clothing. Don't be led by man, but by God only. No man or woman is good. Only God is good. Fam, tell me your thoughts on this in the comments below. All right, fam, that's it for this episode of Hood Tales. Thank you all so much for watching and making it to the end of this video. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This is your girl, Mrs. Tony 2 Times, and I'm out.